How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Greetings, conversationalists. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. Across the United States of America, the phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you wish to be on the program, I would be very, very happy to help you answer your questions. Now, I got to talk about something. Let's go off the beaten path. We don't need to dwell on all the other stuff that's out there right now. I am a subscriber to the Golfer's Journal. And as part of being a subscriber to the Golfer's Journal, I am a member of the Broken Tea Society. In fact, let me see if you go to try to navigate this for you on the fly, because I think I've got the link. If you go to Instagram to EW Erickson, in fact, if you text Eric to 33777, you can, in my Instagram, I think I've got a discount referral code if you want to subscribe to the golf. So if you're a golfer, yeah, down at the very bottom. So you go to Instagram.com/EW Erickson. You click on my bio, click the link tree link, and down at the bottom, you'll see Join the Broken Tea Society. And you should actually do my referral, because if a lot of you then take up the referral, I get a gift. But so the Golfer's Journal is my favorite publication. It comes out quarterly. But what it has is the Society of Golfers. They call themselves the Broken Tea Society. You get a Discord server, you can figure it out. And I don't know any of these people, and I'm probably the worst golfer there. I'm bad, but I love it. And I'm working on getting better. There's actually this place in Atlanta called In Town Golf, and I'm thinking of actually joining a golf club. And it's not actually one of those billion-dollar golf clubs. It's TrackMan simulators, but I need a place to be able to hang out in the day and take people to lunch and stuff. And it's like a country club, but it's got TrackMan golf. And I'm going to go tour the place and thinking of joining the place. And I've gotten to like golf. This isn't about golf. Just bear with me here. So in this Broken Tea Society of the Golfer's Journal, they have something called a Discord, and it's basically an online channel where you have different conversations. Like there's a server for just people who are in the Southeast or Georgia. There's general conversations, and essentially, if you subscribe to Golfer's Journal, you're a member of the Broken Tea Society. If you're traveling somewhere, you want to play golf, you can ping this Discord server and say, "Hey, I'm in this area. I'd love to go play golf." And there's probably going to be someone who will go play golf with you and take you to a nice course. And in the general conversations this weekend, somebody put up a piece. I was sitting at the Braves game watching them lose to the Mets. Fisher and David had a good night, 9-2, no less. And I see this message pop up from a guy in the Broken Tea Society. And he says, a longtime member. I'm not going to say his name, but he says, longtime member, his family's fallen on hard times. He has been out of work for a while now, and his daughter has a medical issue, and he can't find a job. And if you're willing to contribute something to his family, here's their Venmo. And if you don't want to contribute directly, it's gotten to the point where he is selling his golf equipment. And he has some very premium Scotty Cameron putters and some very exclusive stuff that he's collected over time, and he's putting it on eBay, and he's selling the stuff because his family is desperate for money. He's been out of work for so long. I don't know the guy. I know nothing about him. I know he lives in Nashville. And I sent him $250 and said, sorry, you're going through this. And then I reached out to the guy through the Discord server. I said, send me your resume. I don't know what I can do. I know you don't know me, but let me see what I can do. And I got to tell you, I don't even understand his resume. I don't understand it. He is an expert in AWS, Amazon Web Services. He's an expert in Azure, the Microsoft system. He is a computer programming genius and operations, supply chain management, logistics guru from Nashville, Tennessee. I didn't understand half of what I read on his resume. It was so over the top technical and over my head. And then he started texting me. And he said, I know who you are. You may not know who I am, but I know who you are. And I got to tell you how radicalizing this situation is. It says, I'm suddenly like, I want to go on Tucker Carlson and yell about this, because this is one of the issues where Tucker, I think, is actually right on the issue. Guy says he has applied to 8 very prominent companies, and the same thing happened on each of them. He got to the final interview. I mean, you all, this guy's resume is just extremely impressive. In fact, for those of you who are wondering, I mean, just so you get a sense of it, let me pull this up that he sent to me. And again, I don't want to give names, but just so you get a sense of just how, and again, to me, it's a bunch of gobbledygook, but it actually is a rather big deal in the tech space that this guy is this qualified in this aspect. He is a expert in Amazon Cloud Services and Microsoft Azure, Salesforce. He knows Salesforce. He does strategic partnerships in cloud marketplaces, enterprise sales, marketplace strategy, co-sell execution, channel development, dynamic technology executive, 15 years experience building and scaling global cloud alliances, channel sales, enterprise go-to-market strategies across Amazon Web Services, Microsoft platforms, Salesforce, GCP, 200 million in closed ARR, customer launch, on and on, you name it. This guy knows what he's doing. He can't find a job. And he starts telling me these 8 companies, massive companies. He gets to the final interview, and in every single case, it's a female human resources person who, the moment she verifies through visual interview that he is a white male in his 40s, the interview is over. In all 8 cases. He said in 7 of the 8 cases, the woman had her pronouns in her signature line. And the moment she realized he's a middle-aged white guy, the interview is over. So I forwarded his resume to a friend of mine who works for a major global technology company. And I said, I don't know this guy from Adam. I'm in a golf group. He's on hard times. He's been out of work. He seems to be overly qualified. I don't even understand his resume. You probably do. But he says but he needs to find a job, and he can't find a job. And my buddy replied back, and he said, let me guess, 40s white male from the South. I said, is it that common? And my buddy, who is very high up in a technology company, said, oh, if you are a white guy in your 40s, particularly if you're from the South, you are not getting a job in technology in America. It's like, you're kidding me. He said, nope. He said, I work for a company that's not American, and I am literally looking for this person right now. I will interview him. They got an interview today. I hope the guy has a good interview and gets the job. He's been out of work for that long. I think I placed him with it's a good firm. I hope I can help him out. And again, I don't know the guy from Adam. I just heard the story in this group. I was like, gosh, if I know somebody, let me see if I can help. And it looks like I did. So I put it online. I cannot tell you the number of people who have pinged me in and out of technology companies that have said, this is happening everywhere. If you are middle-aged, particularly white male, you're not getting a job once you lose your job. And now there's data for this. There actually is data. Let me give you the data. It is from the Washington Post. This is from Amanda Goodall, who is the job chick. She has a website. She's on TV, a Yahoo Finance contributor. Here is the data. If you're laid off over 50, there's a 1 in 4 chance you'll never work again. Not retire, not take a break, you'll just never work again. 24% of Americans laid off after age 50 never find another job, according to not Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal. The jobs boom is not happening for people over 50, and if you're a white male over 40, you're similarly situated in key industries, particularly technology. I am friends with a guy who is probably one of the top 10 crisis managers in PR in the world. And that is no exaggeration. It is not arrogant to say this guy is, I'm not going to say his name. Y'all would all know who his wife is. He is a crisis manager for the Fortune 500 and is probably, he's got to be in the top 10 of these guys. Movies are written about these sorts of guys. He's one of those guys who does crisis management for like the most powerful people and companies on planet Earth, and he is that good. And he texted me and he said, if I have moved a lot of my retirement to real estate and passive investing because I know, and he's in his 40s, that if I lose my job, and I am one of the best in the world, and if I lose my job, it's going to be at least 2 years before I find a new one in my space, because I'm a white male in my 40s. Says it's just well known in my industry, and his is not a tech industry. Buddy of mine who is a venture capitalist, he literally is a venture capitalist, probably listening right now, lives in Tennessee, worked in San Francisco for years till he made his money, moved home, travels the world, works with all sorts of startup companies. He texted me and said if he loses his job, he's going to have to lie about his age to get a new job. He says it's not just white male discrimination, it's age discrimination. Companies don't want to invest in people over 40 anymore because despite their talents, their skills, and their data, they're a drain on the system, and they're only going to work for 15 to 20 years when you can hire a 20-year-old, teach them your ways, and keep them for a long time. Says it's not all about being a white male, but that's a lot to it. He says it's twofold. There's a racial discrimination component against white men, particularly if they're from the South. And there's an age discrimination component where as you get into your 40s and 50s, your health care costs go up and you're only going to be around for 15 to 20 more years in a company that wants a lifer. So why bother hiring you? The best way to find a new job when you're in that situation is to get out of the industry you're in and go be a consultant. Go start your own job. Get a Substack, I guess. I had no idea it was that prevalent. This is an eye-opening experience for me. This is genuinely an eye-opening situation for me. I had no idea. You're in your 40s or 50s, particularly if you're male and you lose your job, you're pretty much toast. So now, interestingly, follow along with me here. You know who the most loyal voter to Donald Trump is now? That guy. The 40 to 50-year-old white male has become the Republican Party base because they are furious with it because the encounter is the same, just like this guy I'm telling you about. 8 interviews. It's all young women, most of them with pronouns in their bio, who see that he's a white male and that's it. They want a diverse candidate. They don't want the best candidate. They want the most diverse candidate. And you know the dirty little secret increasingly is it's H-1B visas because they're cheaper. The white man in his 40s is expensive. The Indian immigrant who is in his 40s from India is cheaper and probably an independent contractor. And a lot of these major American companies are using the H-1B system to hire cheaper labor abroad at the expense of Americans. It is happening more and more. Look, I support legal immigration, and I support the H-1B visa system, but there clearly needs to be reform. This story is coming up way too much. It's way too common that Fortune 500 companies, particularly in the technology sector, are abusing the H-1B system to not hire Americans, to hire cheaper labor abroad. And if you're in your 40s and 50s, it doesn't matter how good your resume is. They don't want to invest in you because they don't think you're going to be there for a long time. And you got kids, and so you're more expensive as far as insurance goes. This is going to destroy the system. Because what you're going to have, look at Donald Trump and Intel right now. The number of people who are cheering this on, hiding behind national security. There's not a national security reason to back the losing chip manufacturer in America, and that's what Intel is. It is the loser in the system. But there are people who don't care. And there are going to be people who, when the government comes to take over healthcare, they're going to say, well, we did it with Intel. We might as well do it with healthcare. And look, because of healthcare costs, companies don't want to hire me. So let's socialize medicine too. Companies in America are playing with fire, breaking apart their own system and their own good times because they're engaged in age discrimination and race discrimination against 40 and 50-year-olds. This reminds me of the Workday story. Remember, I talked about it 2 weeks ago. Workday was using an AI algorithm to sort people for hiring, and if you got rejected once, it didn't matter what other companies you applied to, you were automatically being rejected, and the evidence shows overwhelmingly white men 40 years old and higher were programmed by the AI to be rejected in the name of diversity. It's a massive class action lawsuit now taking place. If companies don't fix this, Donald Trump is going to smash all of them with a wrecking ball. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. Brad, going to go to you up first today. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Hey, Eric, how you doing?
Good. What's going on?
Well, I've been living this hell that you've been describing the last 2.5 years. I'm 54, white guy from the South. I think you could probably tell. And I'm a home builder. I have an impressive resume, just like you got described about your friend that you met online. I've built thousands of homes, started in 1996, so you do the math. I was laid off from a company, local company, where I'd been for almost 10 years. I had surgery on my foot, and, they laid me off with a severance package. You know what that means.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I thought, well, with my resume, I'll be able to get a job in 2 or 3 months. Well, I finally got a job, by the way, about 6 weeks ago with a great company. I can't ask for any better. But I've literally put in probably 300 applications I was applying at places that I was like, I'm just going to see if I can just get a job. No, none. I would go for the interviews, went to the final, with 3 interviews, had the final interviews, and, it's just, nope, we're going in a different direction. I'm like, what in the world am I doing wrong here? And, and my friends were chiming in, and they was like, it's because you're a 54-year-old white guy. And I'm like, yeah, but look at what I've done. Look at my resume. I mean, and I even brought it up in several interviews. I said, okay, guys, let's talk about the white elephant in this room. And I said, okay, I'm 54 years old, but here's the deal. I'm looking to be with a good company where I can park it for the rest of my career. And, at this point, with being out of work, with these interviews for, over 2 years, depleted my 401k, all my savings, about to lose my home, my vehicle, and all that. Anyway, I just want to chime in.
Look, I appreciate it. I'm glad you found one. I got to let you go there. I got to tell you, my goodness gracious, it's just absolutely, I'm astonished at the amount of feedback I've gotten from people on social media, in our emails, just calling in. A buddy of mine had the same situation, got laid off, 41-year-old white male, didn't have a shot with other folks, had decided to start his own agency for what he does, getting it on social media as well. A number of people just saying that this happened to me, out of work for 2 years. Couldn't find a job, had to change industries. It's wild to me that this is happening to so many people. And listen, I say this from point I am been remarkably blessed that I have not had a lot of jobs, and probably the only person I can think of in radio who still has the job I started out with in 2011. It's morphed and grown over time, but even in radio, a lot of people have a lot of jobs. In fact, the data actually, interestingly enough, shows TV and radio is the one safe place for white men in their 40s, typically, where they can jump to a new job more easily. But it really is a thing, and this guy, I hope my buddy's able to help him out, get him a job. Technology companies are apparently the worst. The number of people who have reached out to me and said that technology is terrible. And inevitably, everybody has the same story, that the final interview, the final boss, if you will, is a young white woman whose entire job is to be the gatekeeper, to lay visual eyes on the applicant, confirm that it is a white guy, and then decline them. This is how the Fortune 500 wokes are maintaining progressive control over their industry by and large. It is how the wokes play this. They want diversity over competence. And if they can't get diversity through the American workforce, they rely on H-1B visas to get that diversity. They simply don't want white men in the job. They think that white men who work at that pace, and again, this is from HR people I've talked to and others within the tech industry, that the reason they don't want the white guys isn't just that they're white guys, it's also they tend to have families. So they have higher insurance costs, and they're going to pay them more because of their background and qualifications as opposed to someone at H-1B visas. We have created a costly discriminatory system that the Fortune 500 goes for in this country, where they really are shutting down white men in their 40s and 50s. It happens to women too, particularly white women, but most notoriously to white men. And the thing that really makes me mad about this are the number of people who are very dismissive of it. That it's really not a thing. You're really exaggerating. This is payback. If they were blocking black men doing the same thing, you wouldn't have a problem. I got that one too. Yeah, I would actually have a real problem. If you were blocking a qualified applicant because of their race, regardless of what the race was, yes, I would actually have a real problem with that discrimination. And what is remarkable are the number of people who are trying to make excuses instead of recognizing the problem. And it is a problem. And here ultimately is the biggest problem. Here ultimately is the biggest problem. It festers radicalism. It festers radicalism. Chuck Todd, formerly of NBC, this weekend tweeted about the raid on John Bolton's house, said, two wrongs don't make a right. And by the way, he is right. Two wrongs don't make a right. Just because the Democrats did it to Roger Stone or to you pick the person. Remember the Obama administration, they blamed a videographer and filmmaker for the attack in Benghazi, and they arrested him for that because they didn't like the outcome. It was embarrassment. They went after the videographer. The problem is that too often members of the press of the Democrats, they don't speak up on the Democratic side. They wait until the Republican side. Well, you know, when you don't speak up on the left when they do these things, it encourages people on the right to do them. This is why this discrimination in hiring situation, when you're blocking 40-year-old white guys because they're 40-year-old white guys, becomes a problem. You begin to radicalize them. And when you shut them out of the system, they begin to start getting mad, and then they're willing to go down a road they otherwise would not have been willing to go down. Look at Donald Trump taking on Intel. I wasn't going to talk about it, but I might as well talk about it. It's a bad idea. Sovereign wealth fund in the United States is actually a bad idea. One, sovereign wealth funds really do breed corruption. Norway is one of the only countries with a sovereign wealth fund that doesn't. Why? Because in Norway, it was legally created by their parliament. It's in charge of the central bank is in charge of it, which is apolitical, and you're not allowed to have any politician connected to it, and you're not allowed to invest in any domestic company in Norway. Kevin Hassett says that Donald Trump intends to make deals like Intel all day long and build a sovereign wealth fund. When you take control of an American company, you are increasing inefficiency. Intel, you know, has competitors that are domestic competitors. AMD, Advanced Micro Dynamics, is Intel's biggest competitor. It actually bet wisely. See, there was a big battle. There was a big battle in microchips. Battery efficiency or raw computing power in the CPU. battery efficiency or raw computing power. Now, for those of you in the tech industry, understand I'm dumbing this down just a little bit so that the average person can understand this. But it's really important you understand what's happening here. There was a massive battle between battery efficiency and raw power. Advanced Micro Dynamics and Apple both realized that battery efficiency of the CPU, the central processing unit of a computer, was actually becoming way more important than raw power. Why? Because more devices are mobile. More devices are mobile. You have an entire computer in your pocket called your phone. You use a laptop, probably not a desktop. I have a desktop here in my office. I use raw power. I want the raw power. But I have a laptop. It is very battery efficient. It can go for about 24 hours doing basic things. I have an iPad Pro, very battery efficient. Travel with it. I have my iPhone. Intel bet on raw power. AMD and Apple bet on battery. And what AMD and Apple realized is that for a lot of the upcoming tasks for AI and stuff, those wouldn't be done on the CPU of a machine. They would be done on the graphics processing unit. The GPU processed the graphics. And graphics are all vectors on a computer screen, and they're generated by mathematical equations. And a GPU is optimized to do mathematical equations in a way a CPU is not. Intel bet on the CPU. AMD and Apple bet on the GPU. And Apple missed the boat to begin with. Apple decided to build its Mac Pro, and they made that little tube, and they backed themselves into a thermal corner, they called it, because the GPUs were too hot for the machine, and they were melting down, overheating, couldn't perform. AMD bet right. Apple caught up to them when they moved to this thing called an ARM chip. It's a very battery-efficient chip, and Intel stayed with raw power. And the fact of the matter is that Intel collapsed. Intel made all the wrong decisions. And then what did Intel do? Intel decided to put in charge of Intel, according to Donald Trump, someone compromised by the Chinese Communist Party military. And now the government is taking control over part of Intel. Here's where this gets to the hiring situation. There are a lot of people who would have been really opposed to the government taking control of major companies, but when Donald Trump's in charge of these major companies and they're mad at these major companies for discriminating against them, their reaction is, well, screw them. They're not thinking about the future, what happens when Pete Buttigieg is president of the United States. They're thinking right now, I can't get a job at this company because I'm a middle-aged white guy and these companies are actively discriminating against me. Screw them. Donald Trump can tear this company apart. I don't care. And you at least got to sympathize with them. You got to sympathize with them because they're not wrong. They are being actively discriminated against. The pattern is just too repetitious out there. And the companies are playing with fire and they don't care. Because it's virtuous, because, you know, diversity is virtuous. And people begin to embrace things they otherwise would not embrace. People begin to embrace ideas they otherwise would not embrace because they're angry. And they want revenge. One of my big criticisms of the Trump administration, and look, I praise him a lot so you can handle some criticism today, is this, and it's not about Donald Trump. I have joked going back to 2015 that a lot of the people who jumped on Donald Trump's bandwagon from a political consultant perspective were on the island of misfit toys politically. They were the guys that no one else really wanted to hire. Along comes Donald Trump, and I don't know that they expected him to win, but they knew they could make money off of him because all the prominent Republican consultants they were going with, the Rubios and the Jeb Bushes and the Ted Cruzes and all the other guys who ran, Donald Trump was kind of like a freak show candidate. They didn't really think he could win, and lo and behold, he did. And for his second go-round in 2024, Trump stayed mostly loyal to the people who had been the outcasts in politics. He brought in some great hired guns. Chris Lasaveda, Susie Wiles, brilliant. They know what they're doing. But a lot of the people in the periphery who are now in the Trump White House were from that island of misfit toys. And instead of showing that they're actually competent at what they do, they're just out for revenge. A lot of them are settling scores internally. I had this conversation the other day with a buddy of mine who is very plugged into the Trump administration. I was asking him about a guy. He's like, oh, you didn't hear? He made so-and-so mad in the Trump White House and he can't even work in politics anymore. Like the guy who cannot work in politics anymore is actually a brilliant field operative for the GOP. He organized a lot of states and helped win, but the political team inside the White House, he made one of them mad because of a personal relationship issue, and now he can't work in politics. And a lot of these guys are just trying to get revenge. They're not trying to prove their competence. They're now score settling. They got 4 years to do it because Trump's term limited. And you're going to get more score settling. It's kind of the problem. Score settling. And when you're willfully discriminating against men in their 40s in this country who are a political powerhouse, they're going to start saying, you know what? I disagree with government control of companies like Intel, but screw Intel. And that's going to start paying dividends for the left long term. But nobody cares about that. No one on the right is playing the long-term game right now. And that's part of the problem here. We're all playing a very short-term game. You put the government in charge of 10% of Intel. By the way, it's voting shares. I know you're being told that they're not going to vote, but if you look at the fine print, they're voting shares. Just Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, says, well, we're not going to vote them. Well, Howard Lutnick isn't going to vote on them. What about President Pete Buttigieg? When he wants DEI to be put back into Intel and he wants ESG at Intel, where do you think the votes are going to be? The single largest shareholder of Intel. And they're going to start doing it to more. Wait until the Democrats start buying 10 and 15% ownership of ExxonMobil and Chevron and ConocoPhillips and BP. Wait until they start doing that and see what happens. You know, the Democrats and the left, they tried to do that with ExxonMobil, and they were able to get ExxonMobil to divest portions of their oil and gas, much to the detriment of the shareholders overall. We're playing dangerous games here because we're in short-term revenge politics right now. And that's going to set us up for hard times ahead unless we realize we really gotta start thinking about some long-term strategies here. And one of the long-term strategies has got to be active enforcement of age discrimination laws in the country, because I don't know that they're being enforced enough. And that's somewhere the Trump administration actually could move. And what are Democrats going to say? It was a law they supported. Start targeting age discrimination against the middle-aged white guys in these tech companies. There's plenty of evidence it's happening. Americans for Prosperity wants you to take one of 250,000 steps for freedom. You don't have to take 250,000 steps. They just want 250,000 people to take one step for freedom in this country in time for our 250th anniversary. I think it's a great idea. You go to afpvolunteer.com and find out more from AFP. Just take a step for freedom in this country as we head into our 250th year. This very much gets into the Jeremiah idea in Jeremiah 29, to seek the welfare of the city in which you live. There you'll find your welfare. Find one way to advance freedom in your community. If 250,000 people do it, we've all taken a step for freedom in our local community. That benefits the state, which benefits the federal government. It's a down-to-top approach. It's a grassroots approach instead of a grass-tops approach. And it advances freedom, and we benefit from our founders' vision and reaffirm our support for the vision the founders had for our country. All you have to do to take one step for freedom in the 250,000-step challenge is go to afpvolunteer.com. AFPvolunteer.com. Stand up for freedom with Americans for Prosperity, the nation's largest and leading grassroots group, and it happens to be on the right. AFPvolunteer.com. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. Stay on the line, if you will. Just so you know, the president has been meeting with the president of South Korea. There's a very interesting situation happening in South Korea where there was a very pro-American president they ousted. He himself was concerned about Chinese and North Korean influence on the parliament. There is a very wild situation. They've now elected the new guy who is much more liberal, sympathetic to China, more open to conversations with North Korea. and he's now at the White House. They want to make American shipbuilding great again. South Korea invested in the United States. Here's the problem. In all honesty, with the investment in the United States from South Korea, it's the rules, regulations, and unionism within the American shipbuilding industry that are the problem. We build one ship for every 300 ships that come out of South Korea. We build one ship for every 500 that come out of China. We build 3 to 4 ships a year. It's absurd. And that doesn't have anything to do with our shipbuilding industry. It has to do with the regulations. It has to do with the labor union rules. It has to do with a lot of other stuff. And until we fix those problems, until we recognize those are problems, we may see foreign investment in American shipbuilding, but we're not actually going to see production of American ships. We got to fix those bottlenecks, and they are ours to fix, not South Korea's to fix. Now, I got to tell you about these resources. I got a question actually this weekend from a listener. They emailed and said, where are they? oldglorybank.com/smart. If you go to oldglorybank.com/smart today, you can get free homeschool materials or just materials to talk to your kids about investing and finance, how to bank, what a bank is, how to park money in a bank, how to invest it, how to take care of it, how to be a good steward of your resources. You go to oldglorybank.com, oldglorybank.com/smart. The resources are completely free. They are designed to be a part of a financial curriculum for your kids or just dinnertime conversations with your kids so they can learn about banking. And if you need a bank, Old Glory Bank is a great bank. They've got no-fee checking, no-fee savings. If your kids want a custodial account, it's a great way to get your kids started with banking, finance, having a place for them to save their money, learn how to do online banking, which is more and more common these days. Great resource. But start at oldglorybank.com/smart. Member FDIC, equal housing lender, terms and conditions apply. When we come back, we'll get into some of the president's press conference with the South Korean leader, but also crime in D.C. The statistics are actually mind-blowing, how they have lowered crime. 12 days, no murders in D.C. Almost never has happened before. We'll get into the details.